What's up, you guys? Scorpio Mars here to talk about Marvel theories because we know it's going to be a really big year for Marvel and Sony for the next 2 years. Vision Quest coming out for Halloween and then Doomsday right after. And if you follow me on TikTok, you've probably seen one of my mini Marvel and Spider-Man theories over the last year and a half. And truthfully, a lot of them were just for fun, but there's actually a few of them that I really believe. So let's string together some of my favorite theories and the ones that I think are most likely to actually happen in Doomsday. Now, of course, I have to start with the failsafe theory because that was actually my original theory, also with the fact that Doctor Strange will be heavily connected with Victor Von Doom. But since making my failsafe theory, I've actually gathered a lot of other evidence to further reinforce this, so let's go over all of the other theories that actually back this up. So in my original theory, if Tony Stark was able to create time travel in less than a single night, all because he was trying to get back to Peter Parker after Morgan came down and distracted him, and considering his promise that he would never do anything to risk Morgan or Pepper or the life that he's built with them, why would he not make a failsafe after said child comes downstairs? Now, the part about Doctor Strange is actually when he told Tony Stark there's only one way for us to succeed. When he looked out into the future and he saw the 14x billion whatever scenarios, he didn't just pick the one where they beat Thanos, because Thanos is inevitable, and I do unfortunately believe that that is actually going to come around in Doomsday once more. But when Doctor Strange said there's only one way, there's actually only one way that A, everyone would survive, everybody would come back from the blip, and that we would actually be able to save the multiverse, because one way or another, the multiverse was already crumbling, and whatever was happening in Endgame with Thanos was just going to be the catalyst that made it rapidly exceed the timeline where it was supposed to fall apart, and thus fall apart much sooner than it should have, because then we learn in Loki, and then also I think Deadpool and Wolverine, that every single universe is going to die anyway, but there are things that can be done to accelerate that inevitable ending. And so by Thanos wiping out half of the existence because he thinks he's trying to save everything, it actually furthered a war with the Celestials, something going on in the God realm, because Thanos thought he was saving all of the, I guess, mortal people, all of the people that we know on all the planets and all the realms, all the universes as we know so far. And I know nobody wants to think Eternals is going to play into anything, but either way, we still learned the fact that what Thanos did actually stopped the Celestial from emerging, and thus by putting everybody back from the blip, that caused the Celestial to emerge. And there's a whole situation, if I'm remembering the movie correctly, because honestly, I fell asleep. I'm sorry. Honestly, the Harry Styles end credit scene still feels like a fever dream of a nightmare. So remember in Loki when they talk about like a nightmare realm, that's what I imagine is in there. Harry Styles is behind that door in my mind. So anyway, I hope I'm making sense. Thanos thought he was saving everybody, but what he actually did was accelerate a celestial war, and then by everything that we did to stop the celestial war, everything's kind of in this like weird limbo, and there's this weird like power grid going on. So Tony Stark making a failsafe wasn't just about him creating time travel and him making sure there's a way for him to stay here and stay alive, or at the very least protect his family. So when he snaps his fingers and he says, "I am Iron Man," that takes me all the way back to the first Iron Man movie, in which when he first says it for the very first time after coming back and he takes that press tour and he's like, "I am Iron Man," he's wearing a green tie. And that could, you know, be coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences. If you know anything about a film's costume design, everything is meticulously chosen for a specific reason. Truthfully, if I was costume design, I would have put him in a yellow or a red tie. He just said, "I am Iron Man." Why is it green? So the next part of the green tie theory is actually going to be further explained in another video called All of the Theories That I Am Hated For the Most, except there's one theory in that video that I actually do believe, and that is the Stan Lee theory. So I said Stan Lee actually had a plan and chose to have Tony Stark actually become Victor Von Doom later on and not really tell anybody, and maybe Tony Stark came up with this idea on his own out of a legacy and love for Stan Lee. But if you actually look back, besides the fact that the statue in the original Fantastic Four movies kind of looked like Tony Stark, because the whole fact of Robert Downey Jr. was auditioning for Victor Von Doom, but he didn't get it and the other guy got it and blah, blah, blah. Not that. So let me pivot here and make sure we talk about the connection between Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom, because I've had a lot of different theories on this, and there's little pieces of truth in each of them, and the rest of them are just, you know, for shits and giggles. So over the years, we have seen quite a few different ways that somebody could enter a mind and another body, and we've had the separation between a soul and a body and a death, a lot of it. So in Ironheart, we got Mephisto, and that defined a soul. In Agatha All Along, we got Rio, and that defined body. bodies and essentially a hellscape, also furthering the conversation about gods and an overall problem going on. Why would she be so concerned about bodies? Because she has a role to play in the grander scheme of the universe. She has somebody over her who's like, you have a quota to make this month, girl. Why aren't people dying? And in that, we have Billy Maximoff, who not only put himself in another body, but later, after the fact, found his brother. His brother's soul was just where? In an ether? That's what I want to know. Where was his brother's soul this entire time? And how did he find it and put it in a body? Other ones we've seen again in Ironheart, which is very similar. Tony Stark in the comics actually put himself into a hologram, and while he was in a coma, he helped Riri Williams learn a bunch of things. Bringing me back to my failsafe theory, that sounds like something Tony Stark probably would have done. And if we actually think about Vision Quest coming out this year, and the fact that White Vision will be trying to figure out everything that original Vision did and getting back with all of his feelings and all of that, and we're going to be seeing not only all of the other intelligences, all of the AIs that we've seen, Friday, Edith, all of it, Ultron will be in human form in Vision Quest. This is something that I am dying to see. But the other thing that we need to remember before we can continue this conversation is what came out at the beginning of this year. So Wonder Man came out in January. In the comic books, Wanda Maximoff actually uses Wonder Man's mind to recreate and help her husband, Vision, after he has been dismantled by the government. Wanda right now is nowhere to be seen. We have Wonder Man and we have Vision trying to figure out what's going on here. I think it'd be pretty interesting if Vision Quest actually included Wonder Man and had him play a role in White Vision's return of his like memories, emotions, all of it. So back when Wonder Man came out, Marvel sent me this, but there was also so many hints to Mephisto within the show itself too. So like it literally says, what's the lore here? Deeper points to the soul. What is a soul? What is a soul? How could Tony Stark have preserved his soul by making a failsafe? What is a soul? Where do the souls go? Where are they stored? How did Billy get Tommy's soul? Where is Tony Stark's soul this entire time? His body goes to Rio. That's his body. A body is different than a soul. His body was destroyed by the Infinity Stones. That doesn't mean his soul was destroyed by the Infinity Stones. What if his soul is on Vormir with the Soul Stone? That's just a reach in the dark. But I tried reading just what they had circled, and that would be day, feet, soul, turn, that screaming silence, person pulled you asking laser blast. Also furthering the conversation of Wonder Man is absolutely going to be a mutant, we have who am I, where am I, why am I, when am I, how am I, what am I? Super like duper emphasized. So if we take all of this to the Fantastic Four movie where Reed Richards is already creating the bridge and Victor Von Doom is absolutely nowhere to be found, seemingly because he's already traveling and hopping around the multiverse because him and Reed Richards are typically working on the same things at the same time, trying to beat each other all the time. Which actually brings me to something else Marvel sent me. Hold on. The new Doom Quest comic. This was the blind bag that just released for Earth's Mightiest Day, and in this there is a very specific conversation plot line where Reed Richards goes on the news and he's like, I want to scale the ultimate optimization of history, which we actually already saw evidence of in the Fantastic Four movie when Reed Richards was like, actually, I created something that's going to capture all of the bad guys in the city at once. He's already thinking like that. The thought is already there. But what this is basically the idea that there is so much bad throughout human history over the years that our end is inevitable. We're going to be extinct one day. The multiverse is going to end. The universe is going to end. But what he wants to do is simultaneously, at every single point that something bad happened, he wants to press one button and just make everything turn to happy sunshine flowers, whatever, all at once simultaneously, because he specifically says, time has a preferred form, a shape it tries to return to despite changes. This may explain why so many alternate universes are so, as my brother-in-law Johnny would say, dang samey. It suggests that the only way to induce a permanent change to time shape would to arrange your altercations to history as such as all of them happen simultaneously. Actually, no. Before I get to time slipping and Loki, we need to finish this plot line. So basically in the rest of this comic book, there's a lot of other really good stuff in here, so I still highly recommend you get it because I'm really doing it a huge injustice by saying that this is the only plot line. Like, there's a double cross in here that you need to know about. But so after Doom hears Reed Richards talk about that on the news, national television, he turns around and he creates the Doom engine, something that allows his mind to enter the body of any person across any time whatsoever. Basically, what happens is Doom creates what Reed was setting out to create first, and Reed is like, you're creating something nefarious. And the whole point is Doom just created something Reed was already planning to create. So how can you call it nefarious just because he did it first? You were going to do the exact same thing. Why is his nefarious and yours not? Even Storm, like from the X-Men, Storm is in this comic book. Loki's time slipping, essentially him being in every single time simultaneously, and him having to line himself up and create a simultaneous cataclysmic action so that way he can zoop be in one singular time. There's only one Loki. He is zipped himself back up. All of that to say, the concept already exists in the MCU, and they have thus laid the groundwork. Bringing me back to last summer, where I theorized that a possible way that Tony Stark could be connected with Victor Von Doom is through the concept of time slipping, and that they could actually be time slipping throughout the multiverse. Now let me bring it all back to why I believe that Doctor Strange is going to be on the same side as Victor Von Doom. And aside from the fact that he is very closely in cahoots with him throughout the comic books, but when he went, through his little time stone and he was like, oh, here's all the possibilities, there's only one way, it's because he saw that the only way for us to survive this multiverse cataclysmic incident is the fact that Victor Von Doom would have to be the one to save us, that we could not have Tony Stark, that the only reason that our universe was not going to survive, that the only way for us to survive is for us to have Victor Von Doom instead of Tony Stark. And that is because we have to go through the process of realizing all of the damage that Tony Stark actually did cause, that the other Avengers actually did cause, that there is a lot of things that have been going on behind the scenes. And that then brings me to my Thunderbolts theory, that Victor Von Doom is behind Valentina Allegra de Fonte, and he actually might be backtracked to be behind the Sokovia Accords in Civil War, and he actually is only angry, and all of that started because he was shorted, and he was behind all of the people that they could even backtrack it as far and have Victor Von Doom being behind that man and having him be the reason that man turned evil, and having that a big reason why the son that's in Ironheart will come after him, and all of that will also be connected once more. But if Victor Von Doom got shorted when Tony stopped making like actual weapons and things like that, then that would prompt him to get involved in the government in other ways to try and get Tony Stark to do what he wants him to do, to get the weapons that he needs to get, because he was still like helping like the US government, he was still helping his friend a little bit. So he was like, okay, I gotta find another way into this. So then as a way to further control the Avengers, these heroes, and all of these other things happening in the world, I mean, we already saw how Wakanda was able to stay completely hidden and not known. Latveria probably did the exact same thing in this universe. And Wakanda would be like, we don't want smoke with them, so we're not gonna out their story. And maybe Wakanda doesn't even know they exist the same way they had no idea Namor exists. So maybe they did. So A, what if Victor Von Doom has actually been around the entire time at the same time as Tony Stark, slowly puppeting things behind the scenes, but also trying to stop the bad effect of Tony Stark? Too many villains have come across saying that Tony Stark is actually what's wrong and what's hurting a lot of things. Now, this is a big jump to the side, but last but not least, this is the last theory that I have that I actually truly believe. The whole situation with Steve Rogers and actually having Loki reconnect to this plot line, I think that when we left the last season of Loki, Loki's best friend, whose name I can't remember right now, sorry, who's obsessed with the jet skis, he was left in his neighborhood letting time pass. I think the neighborhood he's in could actually be the same neighborhood that Steve Rogers and Peggy could still be in. And I think that he could notice Steve Rogers and be like, actually, I know way too much, and I know you're definitely not supposed to be here, so what's happening? Also, sorry, I don't think Wanda's gonna come back in Doomsday. I think they're gonna get way closer to it in Vision Quest. They're gonna take a whole side quest in Doomsday, but then by the end, it's gonna lead us to Wanda actually being the big reveal in Secret Wars. Because truthfully, Wanda Maximoff, and for as excited as you guys are, they are going to take their time for that payout. That's the most wanted return character. Honestly, I might have another part to this, who knows? I think that's a pretty solid start to me having Marvel conversations in longer form on my YouTube. So I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. Let me know in the comments what you think and what other videos you want to see me make. And yeah, love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Follow me for all your Marvel shit. Love you, bye.